They always said pride comes before a fall. I thought they meant it for other people. I didn't expect it to be my in-laws who would learn that lesson the hardest. My name is Michael. I grew up with little, but what we had, my mother's laugh, my father's steady hands, was everything. When I married Lydia, I believed we were building on that loyalty. I worked hard, saved slowly, and whenever my father needed a hand, I gave it. He never asked for much. A small patch of land that reminded him of home, a radio that played hymns on Sundays, and dignity. At first, Lydia's family smiled and thanked me. Then the smiles changed. Her younger cousin started calling more often with emergencies that always ended with my bank number. Her mother learned our schedule and showed up at dinner asking me to pay for groceries until next week. I was patient. Kindness had always been my compass. My father would say, "You're a good man, son. Be patient." I wanted to be that man. But patience isn't permission. One evening after a long day at the shop, I called home and heard my father's voice shaking. Lydia's sister had come by, taken his radio to fix it, and left him sitting without it for the night. He had been waiting for supper and nobody bothered to tell him plans had changed. He cried like a child for the first time in my life. I remember the sound, brittle and small, and it cut through me. I drove back faster than common sense allowed. When I arrived, Lydia's father was there, laughing with his friends about a funny misunderstanding. They told my father to sit somewhere else because the guests didn't want him staring. He couldn't even finish his plate. Later that night he called me and said, "Michael, I felt like I was invisible." The next morning he told me he had sold his little patch of land just to buy me a tool set for my small repairs, a last piece of dignity traded for my comfort. I felt sick. I didn't shout. I didn't break anything. I remembered my father's hands, the way they fixed my toys for nothing, the way they folded my shirt on Sunday. I promised myself I'd make sure they could never make him cry like that again. So I began to collect evidence. Not dramatic evidence, the quiet kind. Bank transfers that didn't add up, messages promising repayment that never happened, photos of the borrowed car with scratches, and recordings of conversations where they joked about how easy men who love their parents are. I kept copies of every loan I had made to Lydia's family and every promise that had gone unpaid. I saved their online posts boasting about new furniture that somehow matched the exact amount missing from our savings. I also met with a lawyer. Not to start a war, but to understand how to protect my father and my family. We restructured names on certain accounts, placed the children's school fund in a trust, and prepared small claims forms for the smaller loans that hurt our life. We prepared demand letters. Legal measures aren't pretty, but they are precise, and they leave a paper trail that people who live by pride cannot erase. I'll be honest, the hardest part was wearing calm like armor. Lydia kept saying I was overreacting. Her family laughed at my strictness. They believed my patience was weakness and that my love for my father blinded me. They believed I'd never go to the law. They were wrong. My plan wasn't about public humiliation. It was about accountability. Justice reads well on paper and hits harder in practice. One sweltering Sunday, the family hosted a celebration. Music, food, guests. They posted photos with captions like "blessed family" and "helping each other." My inbox filled with neighbors' messages asking why I wasn't at the party. I was just not in the way they expected. I arrived at their door calm, hands steady, dressed neat. I carried a single folder. Inside were the demand letters, the bank statements, the repair invoices, the proof of the loans that had never been repaid. I asked the room a simple question: "How much did you enjoy borrowing?" Her mother scoffed. "We're family," she said. "Why make drama?" I slid copies of the bank transfers across the table, matching dates, times, and descriptions. I played recordings where her cousin joked, "Don't worry, Michael will cover it." The room changed. Laughter fell away like petals. Then my lawyer walked in, quiet, precise, and professional. He explained our remedies: repayment demands, small claims suits, and the legal routes to recover assets misused. He explained that promises made in private still leave marks on accounts that law could follow. Her father tried to stand tall and bluff. "This is family business." But the law doesn't care for family slogans. It cares for evidence. We gave them the chance to repay quietly. Instead they chose pride. They laughed and left the house that afternoon in a temper, thinking they'd survive another day. They didn't. Within weeks we filed claims for the small loans. A notice went to the bank for unauthorized transfers. The car repair invoices were presented. Public records, those little things that cost so much to fake, started to line up against their excuses. Neighbors who'd been complicit with their stories began to distance themselves when subpoenas came. Pride that had been loud turned into whispers. The day the court scheduled a hearing, Lydia sat across from me in silence. She had tears I'd never seen before, real ones. She told me she had been scared of standing up to her family, scared of losing them. I told her my father had been scared too, scared of being invisible where he should be loved. When the judge read the decision for small claims and set repayment orders, I didn't clap. I felt something simpler, relief. They were ordered to repay the amounts they had taken. The court also ordered restitution for the damages to the car and the radio my father had treasured. The law had done its work, precise, cold, and fair. That didn't make their faces any less bitter. They complained to relatives and to anyone who'd listen. They painted me as cruel. But the truth is this: I defended the dignity of a man who raised me with empty pockets and full heart. I protected my children's future. I taught my wife, and her family, that kindness has limits when it's met with greed. I won't say the aftermath was simple. We had to rebuild trust at home. Lydia and I had long, painful talks. She apologized for her silence and for letting her family take advantage. She promised to stand with me and with her father when they asked for help the right way. We set boundaries and we stuck to them. Moral of the story: love doesn't mean you let others take from you or those you love. Kindness is noble, but kindness without boundaries invites harm. There is power in patience, yes, but greater power in acting to protect honor when silence has been spent. Sometimes the law must speak for those who were taught to be silent. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more true life stories of betrayal, dignity, and justice in family life. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done differently? I read every reply. Thanks for listening.